Yo, how's it going, Bay Area Lucha Libre fans? I am Jesus Cruz, and this is Indy Handshake, edición de Lucha Libre. And today, my special guest is none other than Bay Area OG veteran, Chicano Flame. How you doing, brother?
Very good, Jesus. It's a great honor for you to have me on here.
Yeah,
tell my story.
Hope everything's going good. Hope you're keeping safe in these trying times.
The family's good. Everyone's holding up good. There hasn't been no one sick close to me. So hopefully we'll keep it that way, and hopefully with a few more months, hopefully this will run its course and get back to normal where we were right before all this started.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think everyone's ready to go back to that time. So I like to start off with these as kind of how we met, or the first time I remember meeting you was at a APW show in King City. This is in the year 2000. APW did, I think, a yearly show there out in King City. Do you remember that event?
I think so. In King City, yeah, we've ran several times there in King City at the fairground, I think, if I remember.
Yeah. I think that was the first time that I physically met you. Do you remember when we first met?
No, I don't remember that. Sorry, Jesus. Yeah.
No, yeah, it was, like I said, it was in 2000 where I remember it was like, oh, there's I wasn't aware that APW had a lucha lord.
Oh, yeah.
I think around that time you were taking some time off, right, in 2000?
You know, I did, yeah. I was looking through my notes and just seeing in those years how many injuries I had. It was like one right after the other. That around 2000, I was just coming back from a torn Achilles tendon that I suffered in '99 playing soccer. So that almost took a good 6 to 7 months to recover and get back to work at my shoe job at the fire department here in San Francisco, and then just that much longer to get back into wrestling also.
Yeah. That seems like forever, man. That seems like forever ago.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell us how did you first get hooked on wrestling or lucha libre?
How did I get hooked? You know, my family's from Jalisco, Mexico. I was born in Ensenada. My family moved to Ensenada maybe in the late 60s. I was born in 68 there in Ensenada. I think in the early 70s, we moved out here to San Francisco. And I remember my grandfather and my mom's side of the family was already established here in San Francisco. So they would take care of us a lot on the weekends. And I remember seeing wrestling with my grandfather, maybe the early 70s, mid 70s, watching wrestling with him in the living room on a big screen, not big screen, but a big console TV.
Okay.
And that's where I first got introduced to wrestling, to seeing it, and I guess fell in love with it there.
What promotion was it?
Oh, it was our local promotion. Back then, you only had one choice. It was back when Roy Shire was running the Cow Palace, and I guess it was under the NWA banner, but it was his promotion. Yeah.
Okay. Who were your favorites?
My favorites, of course. It was Pepper Gomez, just because he was a Latino or a Mexican guy, someone that I could see myself as and rooting for him. But I remember Moondog Mayne was one of my favorites also. You know, I guess growing up, you always well, at least not always, but sometimes you always go for the baby faces. You know.
Yeah.
And those were the top baby faces at the time. I think Ray Stevens and Pat Patterson also, but they're always kind of switching back and forth. But I remember, Pepper Gomez mostly was the guy that I was rooting for all the time there.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet Pepper a couple of times. One of the last times I ever saw him was before he passed over at he used to come by the Pro Wrestling Iron training school. He'd come in and catch a show once in a while or just come in and talk. So yeah, he was always a very nice guy. Yeah,
he was. I got to meet him in '95, right when I got to APW. They did like a little special ceremony for all these old timers, and Pepper Gomez was there, Ray Stevens, Kinji Shibuya, Red Bastien, Alexei Smirnoff, another guy that I saw a lot over there. Moondog Moretti, some other old timers that I didn't really remember.
Yeah.
But then there was a bunch of all of the guys that were there at APW at that point in '95.
Yeah.
And I was one of the newer guys, one of the younger guys. But it was just a great opportunity at that point to meet all these guys that I had grown up seeing on TV.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, I want to say he got inducted, or 2018, he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. His family was there here, into the North Cal Hall of Fame. His family was there, and they let me try on his jacket, one of his ring jackets.
Oh, nice.
And the sensation that I got putting that thing on, it just gave me chills like all over my body. It was just like a crazy feeling to feel him through the jacket that I was putting on. It was amazing, that feeling, that rush, and that chills and tingling that I got just from wearing something that was his.
Did you get the feeling of the iron stomach?
The cast iron stomach.
The cast iron stomach, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got that now.
Hey, when was the first time that you saw Lucha Libre?
Lucha Libre? Let's see, around that time in the 70s, we would visit a lot. My tia's house, that lived another place here in the city, and she had cable, and on whatever specific night that was, the wrestling from the Olympic Auditorium would be on. I don't know if she had cable, but she had some different channels that we didn't have. We just had like the basic channels, but she had something else, maybe Univision or whatever it was called back then. But they would get wrestling from the Olympic Auditorium. Okay. And back then, there were the Scorpion Brothers. I remember they had Mascaras on. Every once in a while, they would show a few guys from Mexico with masks, Mi Mascaras, Psicodélico. But the Scorpion Brothers are the two that I remember the most, and that's when I got introduced to more than just one Mexican star on the wrestling. You know, there was mostly everyone. All the Guerreros were there, Chavo Guerrero and all his brothers, Mando, Hector. Another great group that I liked was Black Gorman, the Great Goliath. For some reason, they were heels, but I really enjoyed their characters, and that's where I kind of got introduced more into the lucha style of it. And then, like every summer, we would drive down to Mexico, and down there in Mexico, I would see, like in all the corners, they would have all the news magazines, all the little stands, and seeing all the little pictures of the Lucha Libre magazines and stuff. Yeah. And then I would buy some of those. I'd give my parents to buy me one, and that's kind of where I learned to read Spanish on the trips back from Mexico, back up here to San Francisco, trying to spell out the words and see what they were talking about, besides just the pictures. Y que ya ves, y lo conoces, or So that was kind of my introduction, and that's where I kind of saw all the masks and kind of fell in love with the mask gimmicks. Okay.
So this was back when you were going back and forth from Ensenada to the Bay Area, right?
To San Francisco, back in the mid '70s, late '70s, we would make a trip down there every summer down to Ensenada to visit the family down there, and on the way back, that's right, I would learn. I would learn to read Spanish through those magazines and be able to pick up the magazines when I was down there. You know, they only costed a couple pesos back then. But it was great.
So even though you were born in Ensenada, your Spanish is not necessarily your strong point in language, right? It's English.
I would say so. Spanish. I never went to school to learn proper Spanish. I learned it at the house with my mom. You know, yelling at me with throwing stuff at me or whatever. So I would say but my Spanish is sometimes it's kind of mucho, like they say. Because I never really went to school to learn the proper way to speak Spanish. It was just all at home. I started kindergarten here in San Francisco and started my whole education here in the city.
Do you find like getting it, or like when you discovered Lucha Libre, when you started donning a mask, do you feel like that kind of connected you more to like your roots down in Mexico?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. And that's one of the things, when I first started getting into it, that's what I wanted to represent. I wanted to represent that style to the people that were here, because there wasn't that many style of wrestlers, or the look of it here in the States. Even in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't that many masked wrestlers, and especially Mexican wrestlers that were here.
Yeah.
You know, besides me, Mascaras probably the one of the only ones that made the trip to the States and everywhere else in the 70s and 80s. He was a more popular one, besides the guys that lived along the border. I'm sure down in Texas, in Gory Guerrero's promotion, or Telly Blanchard's dad's promotion down there in Texas, they probably have more guys that came across.
Yeah.
With the mask, and maybe down in LA too, a little bit closer down there.
Yeah.
But up here we didn't have any for a long time.
Yeah. No, it's amazing how long it took for lucha libre or luchadores in general to migrate to the Bay Area and start working up here. So speaking of like starting working, how did you find out about a school, or how did you get involved in actually starting training to be a wrestler?
Actually training, I think it was 1995, watching the wrestling, in the evenings. I forgot what it was. It was probably, I'm not sure if the wars were still on, the Monday Night Wars were still, maybe not.
That's probably when they were first starting to heat a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. But in that hour, between that hour, they would show commercials of a wrestling school opening up in Hayward.
Be a pro wrestler? Go west, young man.
It was amazing, and that finishing maneuver, absolutely incredible. Hey, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Don't just watch wrestling, live your dreams. Call the All-Pro Wrestling Boot Camp today.
All-Pro Wrestling.
I said, oh man, I always wanted to do this, and now there's a school right here in the Bay Area. Before that, I knew nothing. I didn't know there was any wrestling scene here in the Bay Area, if not for this commercial. And I remember I called it up. I wrote down the number, called it up, set an appointment the first time that I was supposed to go. But then we just had a long night with all the fellas and everything. And I guess it was a Friday night. Saturday morning rolled up, and I was in like a no shape to try to show my face out there and show up for this appointment that I had made.
Yeah, and that was was that with Roland?
That was with Roland, yeah. That was at APW. That was the only thing going around. That was the only promotion that I knew of, at least that I knew of, or that I heard of here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and we're talking about Roland Alexander, who was the original owner of All Pro Wrestling.
Yes, and maybe a month, or maybe a month went by after I didn't go to that appointment, and I would keep seeing the videos of the commercials again, and then finally set up another appointment to go down there. And this time I did show up. And they had us run a couple miles from the garage all the way down to the whole end of the block where you would come into that area, that industrial area of Hayward, and come back. We run wind sprints and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think they got us into the ring at all. They just kind of saw if we were fit, what kind of condition we had to see if we wanted to make it or not.
So who were some of your instructors, and how was training like, besides the cardio?
The guys that I really learned from that were running the show was Mike Modest, Robert Thompson, Mike Diamond. He's changed his name several times. Max Justice, I guess, the last time that he was working.
Yeah, Max Justice.
Matt Heisen, which turned out to be Spike Dudley.
Mm-hmm.
I would say those guys, and Frank Murdoch. I would say those five guys basically were the ones that ran the show. Even though Rick Thompson was advertised as a head trainer, he showed up every once in a while. But basically, those five guys that I mentioned were the ones that really that I learned a lot from. I learned the beginnings from, and they were the instructors that ran the in-ring part of World Pro Wrestling back then in 96, 95.
And when was your what year was your debut match, and what was your character's name? Did you start at Chicano Flame, and who was your opponent or opponents?
Yeah. After starting training in September, after 4 months in January, yeah, they got us in the ring already, you know? It was kind of cool. Yeah, 4 months in January 96.
No.
They had us do a show. I don't know, just because there wasn't that many people, that many workers there, you know, that they just needed to get a few more people in there, and they thought, you know, we would be ready just to be another body up there. And most of the time, it would be just for battle royal matches. Mm-hmm. But I think that one, it was me and Jaime that we were doing a one-on-one match, and it wasn't Chicano Flame back then. Yeah, I hadn't thought of the idea of the gimmick yet. I had a Rayo de Jalisco mask, and I took the Rayo off the front and just left the white eyes, and I called myself El Negro Loco.
Okay.
Because it was just simple. I just took that off. I had some black tights, and I think I even borrowed some boots, some Indian-looking boots from Chris Cole, and it was some black sweatbands on my wrist, and it was a Negro Loco. Oh, we went up there maybe the beginning of the match, at the beginning of the show, and we exchanged a couple of arm drags and headlocks, and then Joe Applebaumer comes in. I guess he had been suspended or something, and he was making his way back to the promotion. He jumped in the ring there, and we kind of looked at him. We rushed him. He kind of knocked us down, gave us his big the apple bomb, power bomb move on both of us. Yeah, it just kind of laid us out right there. So that was my first match.
Oh man, that's cool, man.
Yeah, and then back then Mike Diamond came in, another big guy. He came in to make the save and confront him and set up something for later on. That was my first match at APW.
And
it was a short one. I think this was in Fairfield, I want to say.
Oh, it was in Fairfield. So it wasn't at the garage?
It was not at the garage, no. I don't think we were doing shows there at the garage. At the garage just yet, yeah. I think we're still going out in little spots here and there, doing shows away from the garage until that started off. I think later on that year in '96 we started the APW gym, the gym wars there at the garage.
What year did the school start at APW?
The school, man, I want to say it wasn't much before I started. Like I said, I started September '95. I started seeing the commercials that summer, and by that point there was maybe one or two classes that I'd gone through. So I would say either '94 or early '95 that APW started. Yeah, the Roland saw his vision and started the school that gave everyone in the Bay Area an opportunity to live their dreams, which is what I was doing. Yeah, as a kid, I loved wrestling and the lucha libre, the mask, and everything, and that's what I wanted to do. I remember, like in middle school, I wrote a paper saying that I wanted to be a luchador when it was like the day of, oh, what do you want to be? What do you want to grow up to be?
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's what I wrote mine on. Yeah, not a fireman, not a policeman, not an astronaut. Mine was on wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still have that or no?
Oh no. Yeah, that was in middle school. Yeah, no, I don't know what happened to that paper, but yeah, I remember that. And of course, yeah, everyone kind of laughed or whatever. You know, they kind of made jokes or whatever.
Yeah.
The kids back then, because it wasn't as popular. This was probably the late '70s. It wasn't as popular as it later on in the years it came out to be. Yeah, that everyone was watching it. I think you just had to be a fan back then to really dig it and get into it.
Yeah.
Before the Hulkamania years.
Yeah. So the name Chicano Flame, when did you start using it and how did it come about? And talk to us about the design of your mask.
After using Negro Loco, because I was a heel, because Jaime was a good guy. And then I started using a Mil Mascaras mask, kind of the same eyes and the 5 stripes up on the forehead. But instead of the M, I took it off and I made a heart, a red heart on it. It was a white mask with I think black eyes and a red heart. And I started calling myself El Corazón de Mexico.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. As a baby face going up against the guys there until I was able to send away to Mexico City to Deportes Martinez to get my first 2 masks made from those people there. That they are a big part of the lucha scene in Mexico. They were one of the first ones that made masks down there from Mexico. So I got my first 2 masks, and it was kind of the same. It was like a design of Mil Mascaras in the front, because that was my favorite guy growing up. And except nothing in the front or nothing on the top of the head. But over here I had an eagle, like of the old stuff that Hecho en Mexico sign. It was labeled in a lot of stuff. Yeah, so it was like an eagle of that. And over here I had another eagle that was that I got it from the U.S. Post Office. It kind of looked more American. So that was my Chicano American, Mexican American tribute to the name Chicano Flame. And I wanted to incorporate the Chicano. Growing up in the city in the 70s and 80s, there were still a lot of raza that lived in the Mission. That's where we grew up. We grew up right there in the Mission. So, I grew up seeing all the cholos and seeing all the vatos and all the OGs. And when you grow up, you see all that, and that's what kind of you want to be, because these guys are dressed sharp and they got some nice ladies on their side. The cars, the lowriders were the bomb back then, and for some reason, Chicano always stood out to me. That's Mexican American, and then just to interrogate both of the American and the Mexicans in the name. And then the flame part, I kind of played around with it. I thought of going with Chicano Heat, which I think around that time Harlem Heat was around. It was more like a tag team, so I kind of stayed away from that. And Chicano Blaze, and I settled for Chicano Flame just because of the fire part that I was doing. At that point, I already had maybe 6 years as a San Francisco fireman under my belt, so I kind of wanted to incorporate some kind of fire into the name to kind of represent that. Yeah, Chicano Flame is what stood out.
Yeah, and you're currently active as well, right?
Yes, I got 31 years now with the San Francisco Fire Department. Looking to go one more year maybe before I make my retirement from there.
Right on, man.
But that mask, that was my first mask my first designs that I had made. Yeah. And then I made my way to Guadalajara, met some other mask designers out there, a boot guy out there too that kind of got my first boots and my first mask out there. And the guy out there, he kind of changed I kept the Mil Mascaras eyes, antifaz, on my mask, but then he changed the eagles into something more round with the red, white, and blue, and a green, white, and red on the sides there. And then I wore that for a couple of years. That design of my mask, not knowing too much about wrestling and the copyrights of the mask and all that. And then later on, we had some shows with some more Mexican guys. I remember Rey Mysterio, the father, but the uncle, the original one, being one of them. Yeah. And he saw my mask and he was like, "No, mijo, you should make something more your own. Don't copy these guys. Make something that's going to represent you that's going to stand out." He was saying, "Yeah, no, Mil Mascaras is he's very strict, and he's had other guys take their masks off wearing something even similar to his design, and I'm over here wearing his design on my mask."
Yeah.
And yeah, he was kind of cool, because then we did a show. I ended up driving him around to the airport and back and forth, and after the show, I dropped him off at his hotel. That morning when I went to go pick him up to take him back to the airport, he hands me like these 4 designs of a mask that he had drawn out in the hotel that I still have them. 4 designs of a mask, and then that's I got an inspiration from one of the designs that he gave me.
Okay.
It's kind of what I have now a little bit. It's kind of changed a little bit over the years, but mostly it's kind of the same thing. He had like the same eagle here. The eyes were a little bit different, but up here he had like wings coming up from here into here. They were more like a eagle wings, and then that's where I got the idea to make it like a firebird and make it put some flames on the wings to make it more like a firebird, which is kind of a San Francisco theme, because on the San Francisco flag, it's a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Okay, so it ties all into the city.
Yeah, so it did kind of tie it in. After that, after I saw that, it kind of made sense. And yeah, from the '06 earthquake and fire, yeah, they made this on the San Francisco flag. If you ever see it, it's a phoenix rising from the ashes. So
nice. That's a
so
very.
there you go. Yeah, and then just later, yeah, from a designer, he just made more different variation of the eyes with more fire, and kind of wanted to keep the same designs on the side here.
Yeah. See, a lot of people don't think that there's a lot of thought that goes behind the design. There's a lot of that's a deep story that you just told us just from your mask, you know?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So was APW the only place you were working at that time, at Chicano Flame, or did you branch out to other promotions?
No, I would say from 96 to 90, 98, 99, there wasn't that many other promotions here in the Bay Area. Did I remember we worked for Big Time Wrestling? They must have just been started around the same time in 96 that I remember myself and a couple other guys, I think Modest and maybe Thompson and Frank Murdoch, we were their main event at a couple shows that they ran. They had a few guys at the bottom of the card with mid cards. There were some of their I guess prospects of the school at that point, and they had us students from APW doing the main event matches for Big Time Wrestling under their banner, Big Time Wrestling. And I think in '86 too, we worked for Incredible Strange Wrestling. They were just starting, maybe, and their story, they were just more out to have fun. That I would say maybe one or two of the guys were professionally trained. Not all of them were trained, so they brought in a couple guys from APW to, I guess, to give it a little bit more believable, the matches, and have a little bit more professional matches on the show. And of course, being a masked guy would kind of fit it into the SPW look. Yeah, I was brought in to work some matches there, and we had some good matches. Yeah, it was always a sellout crowd at the Transmission Theater down there on 11th in Folsom.
Okay, they also did a lot of rock shows, right? I think they
did. Yeah. Later on, they started branching out and doing more rock shows going around the country. Yeah, but that was my introduction to Incredible Strange Wrestling. But then when we started going with Roland, and he had, I guess he had the contract or whatever, the negotiations going on with them, I guess what they would pay us. And then somehow there was some kind of disagreement, and then we were banned. Oh, you guys are not allowed to go work for these guys anymore. And being that it was right here in San Francisco, my hometown, I kind of went out on my own and reached out to them and started doing shows with them, but not under Chicano Flame. I started doing it under the name of Negro Guerrero.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They kind of try to hide my identity and try to
spots
and try to do So then later on, I started doing shows with them under that name there.
Yeah.
Which I wrestled a lot with Shane Dynasty back then. I think he had the gimmick of Astro Zombie 2000, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chris Cole and his brother were there. Yeah, and Flaco Loco was there at that point. Yeah,
Flaco, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of guys. But besides APW, I want to say those were initially like the only promotion that I heard of in San Francisco.
Okay.
Or the Bay Area. Yeah.
What about other? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Until later on, like I mentioned, Big Time Wrestling showed up. Later on, this other guy from, I think from back east, he tried to run a few shows, but there were shows down in, like Santa Barbara area, King City area, that he kind of pulled everyone from APW. I think it was all APW guys that he was working with. He ran a couple shows, but then nothing ever happened out of that guy.
Do you remember the name of the promotion?
Yeah, I do. It was like Ultimate Wrestling Championship, something like that.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, like I said, he didn't stick around too much, but he talked pretty good. He had an NWA belt. He said he was connected with the NWA Association. I want to say his name was like Pritchard, but it wasn't Tom or Bruce. It was like some other guy that I looked him up, and he had his time up in the pro wrestling. I think he was Rookie of the Year one year in the mid '80s.
Okay, so yeah, he had some kind of background.
Yeah, but initially it sounded good that he had the NWA belt, and I remember that trip was a fun trip. And he promised that we were going to get on TV. He was going to get a TV contract down there and this and that. And yeah, like I said, we ran a couple shows for him, and then that was it.
Yeah, that story happens a lot, like a lot.
Yeah. You're promised, or they say a lot of things. Yeah, this is going to take off. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and sometimes it's a little bit longer, but but things don't work out for them or whatever.
So for yourself, I mean, you have the lucha libre look, but you consider yourself more of being American style, like trained, correct?
Yes.
Your training is American style. When did you start learning or incorporating more lucha libre into your moveset?
Into my movesets, I would say around 2006, 2007 is when I met the guys from Victor Ortiz, the promoter for Promo Lucha Azteca.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we were doing some gym war shows, and I don't know who brought them or how they got in contact with Roland, but some of his guys ended up doing a match there, like a 4-on-4 lucha match there. And then after the show, I started talking to them, and I started hooking up with them and going and doing some wrestling classes with them, which was at that boxing ring there on a Mission.
In Hayward,
the Arena
US
Hayward.
Karate and boxing, yeah.
Yes, we would go there and do classes there. And then he moved on to another spot, but that was my introduction to the lucha style. Then from there, I learned lucha works on the right side of the body. Yeah. American works on the left side of the body.
Yeah.
But before that, just through my magazines and stuff, I would look at lucha moves and try to work on a couple of holds in the matches before that time.
Okay.
Like in the late '90s, early 2000s. Yeah, it was just all looking at magazines and maybe a videotape or two of me, Mascaras working, trying to work his style and trying to see the moves that he made and the holds that he put on, and try to work on copying his moves to add to my style then.
Okay. All right. So that was the first time that you that worked an actual luchador from Mexico was at Victor's.
Was at Victor's? Yes.
How did you feel? Did you feel kind of weird because, like you said, the lockup is different. A lot of things are different. Was it difficult to communicate with your opponent?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I always wanted to shoot my left arm out at him. Ended up poking a couple guys in the eye, hitting them in the shoulder, bang heads a lot. Yeah, just trying to remember what side to give them initially for the lockup was hard, and then just the moves. The name of the moves, I never knew them before. I always knew them in English, and then they're coming up with these Mexican names of the moves that I had no idea. What do you want? And then the suplexes would always mess me up for a long time because their suplexes was an arm drag.
Yeah.
So they were called suplex, which was an arm drag, and that would always throw me off.
So you did, obviously once you worked more on that style, you kind of, understood, okay, these guys work like that. And you got to work a couple of big names, or like I remember seeing you in an event where you worked Mascara Sagrada. I think it was at that Facebook show for Butch. I believe it was. He was a promoter. So, any other names that you got to work that you used to watch on TV? Now you're working with these guys.
Yeah, my first one. Well, besides meeting a lot of guys, like I mentioned earlier, Ray Stevens, Pepper Gomez, in person. But the first guy that I got in the ring with was Manny Fernandez.
Okay.
At APW, probably like in 97, 98. He kind of came through APW for a while, and it was one of the trainers, or he was always there, always around APW at that point. Yeah, and I got to do a match with him, which was cool, because then growing up and having TBS on TV, I would always see Manny on TBS, NWA, teaming with Rick Rude or with Jimmy, the Boogie Woogie Man.
Jimmy Valiant.
So Jimmy Valiant. Yeah, so that was a big star, one of the big stars that I was impressed and to be in the ring with, working with him. And then, like you said, later on, guys that I wrestled, Mascara Sagrada was one of them. El Gallo Tapado, one of the Huracan Ramirez. Super Parka match was great. That was for Fox City Wrestling.
Oh, nice.
I got to go one-on-one with a Super Parka. Yeah, that after learning about his background and who he was, and
the original Volador.
Yeah, Volador before that. Yeah. And learning his family and where he came from, uncle of the original La Parca, the LA Park now, and just all the sons and stuff that they've got put through the business now.
Yeah.
That was a great opportunity working with him.
Yeah. I got to see in San Francisco a couple of years ago, Volador Senior, and unfortunately, his age and the abuse that his body's taken, unfortunately, he wasn't moving very, very much. But it was just an honor to see him, because he was one of my, alongside with Misterioso, they were my favorite tag team back then.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah, I remember all those that came up around that time, the Familia of Tijuana and all those people back there. Yeah.
So speaking of Familia de Tijuana, I'm glad you brought him up, because your theme song that you come out to is Oye Como Va. Carlos Santana. Yes. Very, very much a Chicano song that the Familia de Tijuana also uses.
Yeah.
That's what they're known for. Have you ever been in a show where you both are booked and you're like, well, who's gonna
play that one? Yeah. No, I started using that song since pretty much Chicano Flame was born. Yeah. Before that, when I went under Negro Loco and Corazón de México, I would use some Vicente Fernandez mariachi.
Okay.
Mariachi music, yeah, to come out for, especially as Corazón de México, one of the Vicente Fernandez songs about El Mexicano or something, Viajando por el Mundo. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I kind of like that, because back then when we would go to these small towns down the 99, down Highway 99 or up north to Ukiah, I would see a lot of raza, a lot of Mexican people in the fans, that they would come out. We're all the Mexicans are big lucha and wrestling fans, that I would see them in the crowd. So I would play that just for them, for them to fire up the crowd, and as a tribute to my own background and to those guys there that I'm sure they're probably gone, and all they hear is was American hard rock stuff blaring over the speakers there. Yeah. I think it made them feel good to hear
the guitar riff.
Yeah, the trumpets and all that. But Oye Como Va, Carlos Santana, it's my dad's first cousin, so that kind of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My dad is a Santana. My grandmother Teresa Santana was sisters to Carlos's dad, Jose Santana. So there's a big, huh?
They're all from Jalisco.
They're from Jalisco, exactly. Like I said, my family was from Jalisco, from Altlan, Jalisco.
Altlan, yep.
Yeah. My dad was born in El Grullo, Jalisco, not too far from there. My mom from El Limón, Jalisco. So yeah, so Carlos Santana is a family member. I've met him once or twice. My dad wasn't that close to him. he was closer to one of his older brothers. But once I knew that, yeah, I knew I had to play that song because it was part of my family.
Yeah, awesome, man. I never knew that.
Yeah, and being from San Francisco, that he took off here in San Francisco in the Mission District. It even represented it more. Me being from the same place that he was at, and being so close as a family, that was a song that I chose to
nice
to play as my intro. Yeah, I kind of like the dun, 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 dun.
No, very iconic.
I remember I would hit that curtain once he started. I would let that play off and say Oye Como Va. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Oye Como Va, is up there with like Lowrider and like Suavecito. When you hear those songs, it's like you immediately think of Chicanos.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. And then later on, another song came out that I really enjoyed was "This Is for la Raza."
Oh, Kid Frost.
Kid Frost. Yeah. I enjoyed the lyrics on that too, and I would throw that in there every once in a while.
Yeah.
This is for la raza. Yeah.
That was my introduction to hip hop when I was a kid. I had to.
Oh yeah. Huh.
I took it from my cousin. He had a cassette, the Kid Frost cassette. It was a single La Raza, and I remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was like maybe 7 years old, maybe. I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what has been so far one of your most memorable moments in pro wrestling?
I would say, lately there's been a few, getting inducted into the North Cal Hall of Fame in 2017. It's got to be one of the biggest accomplishments or privileges that I've had to get recognized by my peers, to get placed in that Hall of Fame with all the other beginners and legends of professional wrestling here in Northern California. That kind of means a lot to me, that I was one of the first ones, probably with this style of lucha that kind of represented La Raza here in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's got to be one of the top honors. Getting to wrestle at the Cow Palace lately for All Pro Wrestling, and getting my hand raised at that Battle Royal there. I want to thank that the people that made that possible. That was a great accomplishment there, being as a kid, going to the Cow Palace, besides watching on TV back in the mid 70s, my uncle used to take us to the Cow Palace to watch these guys live. And that's, besides watching on TV, that's where I got bit by the bug, watching these guys. Like I said, Moondog Man, Pat Patterson, Ray Stevens, Pepper Gomez, Kenji Shibui, all those guys watching it live. Being in the seats of the Cow Palace to actually being in the ring under the lights in the locker room, and then to get my hand raised at the Battle Royal, which I had seen so many Battle Royals, growing up there, that I never would have imagined that I would have been there, 40 years later, 30 years later, being in that spot at the Cow Palace. Yeah.
And that was their staple. That was what they were known for, was their legendary battle,
It was their Battle Royals, yes.
For you to win it, man. That must have felt, like you said earlier, you put that Pepper Gomez jacket on, like,
yeah.
You felt something. Now imagine getting your hand raised in the
yes.
The heroes of wrestling here.
That was great, yeah.
Can you tell us about one of your favorite road stories or stories from the locker room?
Road stories, I would say back in around 99 or so, 89, we did a trip down to San Diego to wrestle at Camp Pendleton out there, and my parents had a van. I was able to get the van and piled up about 6 guys, 6, 7, 8 guys in the van, and we drove down there to do the show at Camp Pendleton. And on the way back, in the morning, we stop off up by the Grapevine up on top. There was an all-you-can-eat breakfast place up there, and I remember we stopped off there and we went in there. Yeah, there was like 6 guys, 6 big guys. We had Boom Boom Kamini, which was a big guy. We had Bison Smith, another big guy. I remember who the other guys were, but yeah, there was like 6 or 7 of us there, and all good-looking, strong guys, and we cleaned up that all-you-can-eat all you can eat
Spot.
restaurant. Yeah, that we had all the Mexicanos coming out of the kitchen. They were like looking like, what? Like who are these guys? They just cleaned us out. Yeah, I remember that was a funny story. A funny story. Yeah, that happened on the road. Yeah.
Were you a big part of going back to APW days? Were you a big part of their gym wars that they used to do at the garage?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was great. Yeah, because it was kind of new, but we had the crowds there little by little that we're building up the fan base. That it was a great way for us to get experience out there and wrestle these guys. Of course, all the guys that were up on top, Modest and all those guys were making their own. They were the ones being featured up on top. Some of the newer guys that would come in, like Tony Jones, right away, he got a big push and got shot up to the main eventers. And back then there was a couple more fractions. The West Side Players was a big group that was there. Mm-hmm. Kami Kamosi, Jay Smooth, which is funny that now I work with Jay Smooth in the fire department. Years later,
oh really?
He made it into the fire department. Yeah.
I was just looking at a video on YouTube. It was like this little documentary of the J.R. Benson that I showed you earlier,
mm-hmm.
And Jay Smooth was in there with Modest. He was in
Modest, yeah.
It seems, yeah.
Yeah. So those guys were a big part of that, and Vic Grimes was a big part of the gym wars back then. Him and Ernie O'Grady had some great matches, some great hardcore matches that were pretty legendary back then. And of course, I worked a lot of those guys. I worked Rick Turner a lot back then. Rick Turner, Jason Clay, Chris. What was his name? Chris Cole and his brother Bill Cole. Yeah, the two original Stoner brothers. I would say, yeah, I hung out with those guys a lot after the classes. Him and Boom Boom. We who were always in the parking lot after the classes, and after the shows there quite a lot. Yeah. But good times, yeah. No, Gym Wars was great. Yeah, like I said, I was part of mostly a lot of the shows growing up there between the times that I stayed healthy and then the times that I had to take a break to recuperate my body. Kind of kept me out of the Gym Wars, and I would come back and be part of there again, and then something else would happen to me that was like, fuck, now I got to take some more time off, and yeah,
fuck.
Gym Wars was great. Yeah, we finally got to a point where it was pretty big and it was pretty recognized, and they had some bigger names or younger people that are in the business now. That is kind of funny, like Samoa Joe, H.A. Styles, Daniel Bryanson, all those guys came through there at one point. That it was crazy to see those guys back then and see them now.
Yeah. Now during Gym Wars, they did have like a Chicano Flame 2, and I think they had a Chicano Flame 3, right?
They did, yeah. I kind of didn't agree with that too much,
Mm-hmm.
I know Chicano Flame 2 was Jardy France.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that kid, and we made a good tag team. And I lent him some of my gear, and we did pretty good, some good matches together as the Chicano Flames 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And then later on, he kind of broke off. We had some good matches there. My first Mass versus Mass was against him, against Chicano Flame 2.
Okay.
Ended up winning and unmasking him stuff, and he became part of the Mac Daddy promotion or whatever, Mac Daddy group.
The Mac Daddy, Crack Daddy.
Yeah. And then later on when I got hurt, Roland wanted to keep Chicano Flame around. So he says, "Oh, why don't we make this guy Chicano Flame 3 to kind of keep the name around while I was injured."
Mm.
And then it kind of became, I kind of saw that it kind of became like a joke that they were starting to make Chicano Flame 4 and kind of put the mask on whoever. Yeah, they would get beat up and thrashed, and I think they put it on Andrew. What's the name? On Andrew something that was there at the time too, and he gets credit for being at the Cow Palace in '07 at the Wrestle Fan Fest that they had fiasco there at the Cow Palace back in that time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
In his bio, yeah, they give him credit as being the Chicano Flame being there, which was just not true that I was there.
Oh, shit.
But it turned out to be more of a joke later on. Like you said, yeah, they would put it on whoever.
Didn't they put it on Christopher Daniels one time?
Wow, no, I don't remember that. Yes. Christopher Daniels? No.
I remember that being a thing. I may be wrong, but I don't know why.
But it might be this guy that I'm talking about. Andrew, what the hell was his name? He was a big part there. Andrew Morgan.
Donovan?
Donovan Morgan, yes.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say Donovan, but I'm like, I don't know.
I think Andrews was first as his shoot name or something.
Andrews' is shoot name, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, Donovan Morgan, yeah, they put it under him, and he kind of ran with it for a while and was kind of doing good stuff. And
okay, yeah.
That's where, yeah, I think they got the notion that in '07, when I was part of that WrestleCon that they had here at the Cow Palace. I don't know if you attended that one. It was like a 2-night of they brought all these legends.
I do remember it happening, but I wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 legends there, and I kind of got the name of the promoter that was running it, and I told him who I was and where I was from, and he let me be in the Battle Royal that night. And I remember, meeting Chavo Guerrero in the back, and yeah, we kind of hit it off a little bit. Chavo Senior, the classic, yeah, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, in the Battle Royal, just find me, and we'll stay together." And we did. We went at it for a while, which was great. Was another one of the biggest like victories for myself personally to be in there and mixing it up with the Chavo Guerrero, another guy that has a big long family family in the lucha libre in Mexico. His dad teaming up with El Santo was a big deal back then.
Can you tell us about a time where you had a crazy fan interaction?
With the fans, it's always been a pleasure one being a babyface, a good guy for so long. You always get that cheer, especially the kids. I really enjoy the kids just mobbing you when they see you and stuff, and being in a mask after the shows. You take it off and you walk out and no one knows who you are, so they don't give you any smack, or they don't even bother you because they just think you're just they don't know who you are. Yeah, they just think you're someone else, and they're out there waiting for the rest of the guys to come out. So as far as the interaction, yeah, I don't think I've had any negative ones. They've always been good ones. No one's ever challenged me at the end because at that point, because they don't know who I am, And being a good guy, yeah, no one really wants to mess with give the good guy a hard time. It's always the heels that they go after for some reason or another, doing their job.
So kind of winding down a little bit here, anything from the business, all these years that you've been working, anything that you found disappointing?
The payouts. Yeah. No, but besides the pay, disappointing just how lately on, the Bay Area wrestling thing kind of became cliquish and stuff, that if you weren't part of this group, they weren't going to let you wrestle. If you didn't go to this school, they weren't going to use you. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, disappointing. That later kind of turned out to be a game of that type of deal of using these guys and not using these guys. But I think later on, you kind of see what the business is like, and you see it for yourself, and you hear stories, and you kind of end up accepting that this is the way this business of ours is, this professional wrestling, especially at the independent level. This is the way it is. You gotta have to roll with it, and sometimes take your lumps and play those games to get somewhere. Which is, I think that back then in the APW days, I didn't really hang around too much at the end of the classes, at the end of the shows. That kind of hurt me a little bit of not being part of the group, being part of the in group, because I would do my stuff and do the show, and then pack my stuff and go home. That I wasn't that I know that kind of hurt. That if I wish I would have stayed around longer. Like after the shows, after
bond a little bit more,
bond a little bit more, and kind of made some tighter friends. They were running the shows back then. Yeah.
And with that, I just want to ask what your future plans are. I mean, after this COVID thing passes, but I mean, you mentioned that you got about a year and you'd like to retire from firefighting. But what about pro wrestling?
From pro wrestling, this year will be 25 years since I started wrestling. The 25 years in the business, off and on. I think it's a pretty good deal. That before all this started, I was going off and on helping there at a Fox and at Gold Rush Wrestling with his promotion there, going every once a month, once every couple months with the students there, and I would kind of enjoy going to do that a little bit more. I know that you get less opportunities to wrestle now with some of the bigger promotions, which is kind of understandable. That my style is not the same as it was back then, or my look. You get a little bit bigger belly. And and I'm sure it doesn't look good with being out there, but I kind of enjoy every once in a while where I do get to do some of those shows, either just to be there and just give the new kids a rub, or just to help their stars that they got there growing, just to have someone to wrestle with, to put them over. And then doing the smaller shows with Victor and some other shows that have popped up here and there and stuff, but yeah, there comes a time where you kind of start thinking of maybe hanging it up, just because you don't want to look bad out there doing it and stuff. And who knows now, taking these bumps when I come back, see how much that'll hurt on my body. And I would hate to get hurt this deep in my career, or this deep in my age, that to have something more serious happen to me. Yeah. And I've always thought about maybe challenging for my mask, like one last time, and maybe, unmasking, at the end of the career or something. Yeah.
We got to do a Super Diablo versus Chicano Flame, dude. They had the
OG
mask on the line.
The original mask guys, yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that come to mind that I wouldn't mind losing my mask to, or who knows, or maybe just leaving with it on. That'd be kind of nice too.
Right on, man. Well, thank you for doing this interview. It's always a pleasure speaking with you and running into you at shows. I've run into you at art galleries. Remember that art gallery?
Yeah. That art gallery was another good one. It was the one that we just ran into kind of a couple of years ago. But before that, in that same gallery, they were doing a wrestling show there, doing some kind of different stuff, but it was all wrestling stuff. Yeah. La Quebradora, I think it was called. Yeah. And I went in there and talked to the guy. I was able to talk to Mascaras to come out, and he did a lecture for that opening that night, which was another great honor. And then a couple months later, when they closed that show, I brought Mascaras out again. I was able to tag team with him.
Nice.
Downstairs, yeah, we put on a show, which was the only time that I promoted a show that I paid for, and I was able to have Mascaras as my partner in the same corner. Nice. That was another highlight of my career, hanging out with him.
Yeah.
Those couple of weekends that he was out here, and just talking to him and his life story of what he went through, the racism that was involved back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. Working here in the United States, being one of the only Mexican guys working the working the territories. And like everyone knows, he was the first masked guy in Madison Square Garden. Before that, when guys would mask, like the maybe like the Superstar or the Spoiler would work at Madison Square Garden, they weren't allowed to work with their mask on. Mm-hmm. They would have to work without a mask. And Mascaras was one of the first guys. The first guy they wrestled with the mask at Madison Square Garden. He got that rule overturned. Meeting with the mayor or whoever was in charge of setting those rules out there, and just all his life story and meeting him back in those days and hanging out with him. Yeah, that was another great feather in my cap for my professional career, that I never would have thought that I would, being a kid, that I would be hanging out with Mascaras and seeing him without his mask.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Chicano Flame, for doing this interview with us. And this has been Indy Handshake, Edición de Lucha Libre. I am Jesus Cruz, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.